So now we're recording and we can do Bible study.
Holy moly.
I told you not to do that. Alright, no takes. Here we go. Anyway. Should we do an introduction, I guess? Nobody's watching this anyway. This is just for us. So my name's Joe. I like Jesus. I met him about a year ago or something like that. And I'm reading through the Bible with my girlfriend, who's 600 miles away. And that's her down there. Go ahead.
I'm Liz. I'm the one that's 600 miles away. And I also love Jesus. And Joe here brought me back to him about a year ago, I'd say.
Oh, look at that. Now, yeah. That's a story, isn't it? So we started doing a little Bible study. And that started probably 17-ish weeks ago, because we read about a chapter a day, I'd say. I started with Genesis 1. We're going to go through the whole Bible. And at a chapter a day, that's 900 and some weeks, probably. So nothing left to do but to do. I figured start recording it, share it with people. Maybe someone wants to listen. But then we can go back and listen to it in the future and be like, look at these idiots. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're just kind of moseying around, Holy Spirit on them with a loose piece of spaghetti, not even a rope. So,
And a mullet.
yeah, I got the mullet going. Jesus approved. Locks. So, who wants to read tonight?
Me.
All right, Toots.
Me.
Genesis 18. Get it going.
Okay.
Probably sounds a little bit better. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Chapter 18. Then the Lord appeared to him by the terebinth trees of Mamre, as he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing by him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the ground and said, My Lord, if I have now found favor in your sight, do not pass on by your servant. Please let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh your hearts. After that you may pass by, inasmuch as you have come to your servant. They said, Do as you have said. So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, Quickly make ready 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, took a tender and good calf, gave it to a young man, and he hastened to prepare it. So he took butter and milk and the calf which he had prepared, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree as they ate. Then they said to him, Where is Sarah your wife? So he said, Here in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return to you according to the time of life, and behold, Sarah your wife shall have a son. Sarah was listening in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah had passed the age of childbearing. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I have grown old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord, being old also. And the Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I surely bear a child, since I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? And the appointed time I will return to you, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, No, but you did laugh. And the men rose from there and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them on their way. And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing, since Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? For I have known him in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of the Lord to do righteousness and justice. And the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has spoken to him. And the Lord said, Because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grave, I will go down and see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against it that has come to me. And if not, I will know. Then the men turned away from there and went toward Sodom, but Abraham still stood before the Lord. And Abraham came near and said, Would you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there were 50 righteous within the city. Would you also destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous that were in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing as this, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be as the wicked. Far be it from you, shall not the judge of all the earth do right? So the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, when I will spare all the place for their sakes. Then Abraham answered and said, indeed now I am who but dust, and ashes have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose there were 5 less than the 50 righteous. Would you destroy all the city for lack of 5? So he said, if I find there 45, I will not destroy it. And he spoke to him yet again and said, suppose there should be 40 found there. So he said, I will not do it for the sake of 40. Then he said, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose 30 should be found there. So he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, indeed, I have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 should be found there. So he said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. Then he said, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak but once more. Suppose 10 should be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. So the Lord went his way, and as soon as he had finished speaking with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, recap. It's been a little bit.
Has been.
So where are we picking up? Genesis 17, quick recap. Sign of the covenant. This is when Abraham was 99 years old. Lord came up to him and sets the covenant between him and Abraham, telling him he's going to have a bunch of kids, more than the sand that you can count, yada, yada, yada. You're going to have many nations, be the leader of all those nations. One stipulation, though. You got to cut it off.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
So he makes the covenant through circumcision, more symbolically, right? God's following his end of the deal, but they're, making it. What's the word I'm looking for? It's Abraham's doing it to seal that covenant with God for himself, right?
Yeah.
And then God promises him again, Sarah's going to bear you a son, and we're going to call him Isaac. Why did they call him Isaac?
It's in here.
Because Isaac means like he will laugh, Isaac means like to laugh, and
oh yeah,
because Abraham's like, me, bear a child, I'm 90 years old. Sarah's 90 years old. We ain't having no kids, you crazy? And God's like, you're gonna have a kid, and you're gonna call him Isaac, because like he kept laughing about it. And then we just read in this chapter, Sarah was laughing about it. He's like, do you believe this, Lord? This God saying we're going to have kids? You believe that? So, name him Isaac because they were laughing. Pretty funny. Lord has a sense of humor, I do think. And as for Ishmael, since Ishmael was a poor decision on Abraham and Sarah's front, God is glorifying it, right? Because Ishmael shouldn't have to suffer, and neither should Hagar, his mother. So Lord made that all right, and set the covenant with Abraham. And then Abraham followed through. He circumcised everyone, every male, past the age of 7 days or something. I don't remember the nitty gritty. We'll get some memorization later on, but last chapter talked about that covenant. Now, the son of promise, we jump to chapter 18. So this is assumedly after 17, after that covenant got made. And then the Lord appeared to him by the terebinth trees of Mamre, as he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. So Abraham is sitting, hanging out by his tent in Mamre, which is where he settled down, right? Kind of where the Lord told him. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing by him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the ground and said, my Lord, if I have now found favor in your sight, do not pass on by your servant. Please let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh your hearts. After that, you may pass by, inasmuch as you have come to your servant. So 3 men. And one of them is Lord. Or are all 3 of them Lord? Father, Son, Holy Spirit kind of action.
Yeah, does he see all 3 of them?
What?
Does he see all 3 of them?
Yeah, it says, so he lifted his eyes and looked, behold, 3 men. Can you turn down your volume a little bit? I'm getting echo. Yeah, he said, so he lifted his eyes and looked, 3 men were standing by him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the ground. So immediately he saw either these were important people or this was God. But once he got there, he said, my Lord, I have now found favor in your sight. Do not pass by your servant. So he wants to serve the Lord.
Right.
Whether this is one person or all 3. Sounds like it could be all 3. Let's see. Yeah. So obviously Abraham's eager to serve. The last chapter he was just chopping, cutting everything off for the Lord. So he still wants to follow up with that covenant with the Lord, I guess. Still feels devoted. So he washes their feet, a clear sign of servitude, similar to the Gospels. Remember, Jesus was washing the feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a common thing back then. Wash the feet. And we just watched that movie where the pastor was washing the feet. Yeah, that was a tearjerker. Where he was, What was the movie called again?
Jesus Revolution.
Yeah, the Jesus Revolution. That was a good movie.
That was a good one.
Yeah, no spoilers. Go watch it. Yeah.
Look like Uncle Sam.
This isn't a paid promotion. And he asked them if they can wash their feet and then feed them, because he is the Lord's servant. And then they said, do as you have said. So Abraham hurried into the tent to tell Sarah, quickly, make ready 3 measures of fine meal. Knead it and make cakes. God loves some good cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, took tender and good calf, gave it to a young man, and he hastened to prepare it. So he took butter and milk and a calf, which he had prepared, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree as they ate. Oh, Abraham's in a rush. Lord said, go do it, and he's doing it. Nothing else. He's taking priority. His turnaround time is like this. No end of the week for Abraham. It's not like, all right, well, I'll get to that in a second, Lord. No, I'm doing it now, which is, I guess, something maybe we should be considering. Not like, yeah, the Lord wants to do this. I'll do it when I'm, comfortable. It's like, yeah, do something when he says so. Because we are servants. Let's see. There's something else that caught my eye when I was going through. Oh, yeah, and then right when he gave them everything, he just stood by them under the tree as they ate, which, like, if that isn't, like, a servant, I don't know what is. It's like, here's your food. Now I'm going to sit here and make sure everything goes down nice and smooth. So it's like, yeah, just Abraham's body language and how he's acting and projecting himself to the Lord is pretty cool. And then they said to him, where is Sarah, your wife? So he said, here, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return to you according to the time of life, and behold, Sarah, your wife, will have a son. So now the Lord's talking to him, reminding him again of that covenant. But be conscious, it'll happen in the time of life.
Does that mean like in spring? Like when everything comes? Is that like literally like, because like the spring is like the time of life, like everything comes back?
I don't know. Maybe that's something we can look into. Yeah, I didn't set up the little stream thing here to capture any side research that happens. But maybe that could be your job. You could be like my young Jamie and then like have another tab open and be like Googling stuff. What was the
You're doing so fast.
I think it's BibleRef.com. They're pretty good. They've got some good excerpts to kind of pull from. But yeah, I don't know if he promised a specific time now. But he said, I will return to you according to the time of life, and behold, Sarah, your wife will have a son. And then Sarah, little eavesdropper, was listening behind the tent. Like, can't fool the Lord. He knew she was listening. It says, now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age. So reminding you that they're 99 years old, or whatever, probably older than 99. And then Sarah laughed. After I've grown old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being so old? Lowercase Lord, meaning Abraham, Lord of her household, I guess. Both a bunch of geezers. We gonna have a kid? And the Lord said, why did Sarah laugh? Surely. Shall I surely bear a child since I am too old? Mocking her. Like, is anything too hard for the Lord, he says? At the appointed time I'll return to you, according to the time of life. And Sarah shall have a son. You find anything on the time of life?
I'm just figuring out how to work this website. I think I just figured it out.
Oh, how to get to each verse?
Yeah, I just found it.
Yeah. You go to the book and the chapter, then kind of scroll through verse by verse. It's pretty solid if you have it up when you're going through it, but... Yeah, but then Sarah denies it. I didn't laugh. I didn't do it. I mean, she was scared, like a little kid. I didn't say that. I didn't mean it like that. Don't take away my snack. Dead air.
I guess not.
Google it. Oh. The time of life, Genesis 18. I'll do a quick Google. It just means the time when a child is born and becomes alive. Just a little excerpt from the Google SEO little blurb. Yeah, it's these are all saying like it's when the child's born. So he's not telling them or revealing them anything else. He's just saying, at the appointed time I'll return to you. So like in my good time I'll show up and according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. So, any questions on this so far? I feel like this is fairly straightforward. The Lord shows up with two dudes.
Yeah.
Probably not dudes, but like, Lord appeared. Abraham saw him, served them well. Sarah laughed at them.
Right. Again.
Well, Abraham laughed the first time. Now Sarah's laughing. Now Isaac really means something. So every time they say, yo, Isaac, get your hand out the cookie jar, they'll be like, shouldn't have laughed. Anyway, Abraham intercedes for Sodom. Then the men rose from there and looked towards Sodom. Imagine this was them getting up after they just ate that meat and cake, and they're like, yeah. Just kind of gazing off at the distance, like some dads just like rubbing their belly. Yeah. Look over there, and the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm doing? And since Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of the Lord, to do righteous and justice, that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he had spoken to him. And the Lord said, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grave, I will go down and see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against it that has come to me, and if not, I will know. Then the men turned away from there and went towards Sodom, but Abraham still stood before the Lord. And Abraham came near and said, would you also destroy the righteous and the wicked? So the Lord and his two dudes stand up. They're like, yep, gotta go get to work. Gotta go lay some justice. And the Lord's like, I should probably tell Abraham what we're doing. Why we're even here. It's the only right thing to do, So he tells his offspring about us and how they hold good moral code and tell people what they're doing, I guess. He tells them, There's some bad stuff going on down there, so we're going to go check it out and see what we can do about some of this sin. Haram!
It's going to be on the soundboard.
Yeah, I need a haram button. The haram was very grave. So, yeah, the Lord's telling him he's going to go do some judgment. And Abraham's feeling slightly guilty now. Because remember a couple chapters ago, his boy Lot went down there.
Yeah.
It's like, but Lot was a good guy. We were together. We were herding cattle and people and stuff. You know, we got rich in Egypt. You're not going to destroy everyone, are you? Not everyone. So let's say there was 50 people down there, right? There was 50 of them, and they were good. They were righteous people. Would you destroy them too? And then the Lord, I already know what he was going to do. He's like, if there's 50, I won't destroy them. And then it keeps going down, right?
40.
And then Abraham, like, where is it? Verse 27. Abraham says, "Indeed now I who am but dust and ash, have taken upon myself to speak to the Lord." So he's like very aware that he's just human, trying to he doesn't want to be telling the Lord what to do. Yeah. He's like, "Hey, I know, you just made us out of dust and stuff, but
he knows someone there."
Yeah, but hypothetically, if there were 45 people there, if there's 5 less, would you still destroy them all? And the Lord's like, 5 less, so 45. Nah, I say 45. If there's 45, I'll keep them. Abraham's like, all right. Wait. What if there was only 30? Yeah. Abraham, sure. If there's 30, I'll do 30. And Abraham again.
Not enough for him.
Yeah, and Abraham again. "Indeed, now I have taken upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20. There's 20 in there." And the Lord's getting short now. "I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. Then he said, "Let not the Lord be angry. I'll speak out just one more time. Suppose there's only 10 there that are righteous."
He's like, "I know I'm being annoying, but
yeah,
I just ask one more time."
And then the Lord said, "I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. So the Lord knows everything. The Lord already knows how many not righteous and righteous people are there. He'd probably tell Abraham if he asked. But Abraham's, kind of beating around the bush here. He's like, Abraham didn't ask for Lot to be saved or like anyone Lot cares about. He's just like asked about the righteous, which I guess that's the priority, right? Not the people. I don't know. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But there's obviously people there Abraham cares about, and he thinks that they're righteous and they're saved people. But the Lord the whole time is taking into consideration what Abraham's asking, giving him valid responses. And
God really knows what he's like.
The Lord knows that there's not no one there to save. Dude, it's bad. It's called Sodom. You know where the word sodomy came from? It ain't too good over there in Sodom and Gomorrah. I think that's just hearsay. I don't know. But the word on the street is that's where Sodom came from. It's not doing too good for them. So the whole time the Lord's like, 50? Yeah. If there's 50, I'll save them for you. And it gets down to 10, and the Lord's like, yeah, if there's 10. The Lord knows there's probably not. Or he knows there's not, right? But this begs the question, why doesn't Abraham ask for just one?
I think it's like if he just asked about Lot, then that's like, why do you think he's more like important or any better than like anyone else who could be there? So I think like he's aware of that too, and he can't just like ask these like absolute questions to God. And it's like, you can't just ask me anything and know anything. So I think he's like kind of being humble.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Abraham's a holy man. He's righteous. And I think that's why the conversation stayed on the righteous people, not Lot or like anyone else that he knew that was there. Because he had to have known other people, right? Like Lot had his crew of people and Abraham had his crew of people. So there's like overlap, and they apparently was bickering. So it's probably a good chunk of people that Abraham knows.
Yeah.
So he's talking to the Lord. So he's trying. What he's doing is selling, right? He's like, I know you don't really want to save righteous people. Like, if there's righteous people there, would you save them? So, like, now Abraham's, like, hedging his bet. He's like, 50, 45, 30, 20, 10? Would you save 10? Yeah, I'll save 10. So he's just like, if there's 10 or more, the Lord's going to save them. So he's like, all right. So Abraham's going to sleep a little bit better now. So, yeah, I think that's why he didn't bring up Lot specifically. And then why didn't he bring up just one? I think Abraham probably knew deep down, like, if there's not at least 10 righteous people there, there's probably not one.
Like,
right?
probably.
Why would there be one righteous person in a city like that? What did the Lord say? Like, grievously in sin. He says, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grave. When the Lord says very, it's got to be bad.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go down there and see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against it that has come to me. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. Overall recap. Abraham served the Lord some dinner, fill up his belly before he had to go do some judgment. And Abraham, being a moral man, cared about the people in Sodom and Gomorrah, bartered with the Lord, right?
Mm.
He was asking the Lord, and the Lord was answering him. Being respectful the entire time, right? So if the Lord were to present himself to you, would you be like, yo, Jesus, how you doing? What you doing later? Or are you going to be like,
Well, we talk about you a lot.
I am yet but dust. But I do have to ask, what does the Lord have for dinner arrangements this evening? Right? So
I hope there's lots of
hope to maintaining this level of respect. I mean, obviously when you pray, it's more of an intimate relationship, but yeah, still maintaining this is, I think, part of the value here. What did you find valuable in this script?
What did you say? Sorry, like,
I said, what did you find valuable in this script?
We've been reading this since chapter 1, and valuable in this and so far is like Abraham's growth in like his trust in God. And I like seeing that like grow each chapter. This one especially because he was very careful and like sorry, I have a frog in my throat. And just like served him well. And it just really shows like his trust and that he like gives himself fully to the Lord.
Yeah, it seems like this chapter he's got a lot of respect for the Lord. Because in previous chapters, he's like, I kind of want to go back and find it. But like the Lord does something beautiful for Abraham. I think it was the last chapter we read. We skipped a week. It's been a little bit. Yeah, right before Abraham left. Yeah, you have the Lord presenting himself to Abraham, shows up, says, I am the Almighty God, walk before me and be blameless. The Lord comes to you as the Almighty God, makes a covenant with you, and then Abraham doesn't believe him. Abraham fell on his face and laughed in front of the Lord and said, a child be born to a man who is 100 years old, and Sarah, who is 90 years old, is going to have a child. the Lord showed up in front of you and told you you're gonna have a kid, and you're like, yeah, this.
He's laughing.
But it comes to now, the next chapter. The Lord's like, yeah, I'm gonna go see what's going on in Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham's like, don't destroy them all, please.
Yeah, he's washing his feet.
He's like, I know you're gonna fall through. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So that is a nice jumping character there. We'll see how that goes.
What about you?
I already said.
Oh, kind of like the same thing.
Yeah, kind of in the same thing, right? How respectful Abraham is to the Lord, and how the interaction kind of happens. Very respectful. How he's conducting himself. He's very conscious of his mortality and who he is, where he came from. He said, "Yep, but I am from dust, and I speak upon the Lord." So he knows he has very little input.
Yeah, right. It's not asking for too much.
And then seeing the Lord's character and taking that into account, right? The Lord knows that Abraham cares. So he respects that and tells Abraham what he asks.
Yeah.
The Lord already knows he's wiping out the whole place. But he's answering Abraham's questions honestly.
Yeah.
Right? We haven't read Sodom and Gomorrah yet. I've never read it. But I can tell you from hearsay, it didn't end well. I mean, that's the saying, right? Sodom and Gomorrah, it got wiped out. So, big city. So yeah, I think that about wraps it. You have anything else you want to touch on?
No, that was a pretty. I thought there was gonna definitely be more. Cause this one was longer than what we usually read. I feel like. Pretty straightforward.
Ain't too shabby. Oh, PC fan is going nuts. It says encoding overloaded, so I think that's a wrap.
Okay.
All right.
HolyMoly.
Episode 1, Holy Moly.